This is Dr. Chris's Radio Horror, 91.3 FM, WCW in Worcester, Massachusetts. If you're listening to this recorded interview, it is late April, and this is probably playing in the middle of May, and hopefully you are all safe and healthy during quarantine 2020. On the show with us tonight to talk a little bit about his long career in horror, science fiction, fantasy, and all sorts of weird movies he did. Recently, just had it was probably the most well-known movie, Chopping Mall, on Joe Bob Briggs' The Last Drive-In show on Shudder a couple weeks ago. It was fantastic to see that. We have Jim Wynorski on the show with us. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Jim.
I'm happy to be here, Chris.
Were you pleasantly surprised to have your movie showcased on The Last Drive-In as the premiere of Season 2?
Well, I didn't know when it was going to air, but I did get email from Joe Bob at one point saying it would probably be showing.
Is that the first time he's shown Chopping Mall? Did he ever show it in the 90s?
No. He showed it back in the 80s when it was first, when he was on the movie channel.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I flew out to Texas at one point to do his show back in the day.
I was me and a friend of mine were going through some films to cover for a film series we do called Film Dungeon Commentary, and we came across Vampirella, and I had known Vampirella for many years. I had never seen it, and then when I found out my roommate had it, I flipped it over, and I was like, gee, I know who that guy is. That's so funny. That's fantastic that he did this movie, the only movie based on this 50-year-old comic book character. And we gave it a glorious review in the Film Dungeon Commentary, which is up on my YouTube channel.
Chris, it was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare?
Nightmare. And I can start to go into why. Mainly because it was done for Showtime, and Showtime insisted I use Lisa Soto in the lead, and although she's a fine actress, she was not Vampirella. And then I was forced to shoot it in Las Vegas during a heat wave, and every day was 110. There was a big union situation in Vegas. It just made shooting that film rather difficult and impossible at points. And then the effects people let me down. And it's one of those things I wish I could go back and do it right. Because I originally wanted Julie Strain to play Vampirella.
I read that.
They wouldn't hear of it. We went with Lisa Soto, who had been in Mortal Kombat, but she has a very petite little body and doesn't look like Vampirella below the neck. And she was very shy about the costume. And everything got messed up. I did the best I could, and I had some good times in Vegas, but it was difficult, to say the least. Hope you can take up this air.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. Of course, that's the second comic book movie you had done, because you also did The Return of Swamp Thing after the original movie by Wes Craven.
Yeah, well, that movie was a fun movie all the way around, and I had a good time with that one.
I could definitely tell that by the commentary that came out on that Blu-ray that was released like a year ago. I immediately picked up, and you had a lot of enthusiasm during the commentary with that film.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. I was working with Heather Locklear. My girlfriend at the time was Monique Gabrielle, and she was in one of the leads. And they had the money to do it right, so it was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed making that movie.
One fantasy film I grew up with in the 80s for a long time was the Deathstalker series, and I hadn't until recently learned that you did Deathstalker 2. Is that a favorite of yours, or?
That is a favorite of mine, mainly because I hated the first Deathstalker. Hated it. It was this Muscle Man, Conan ripoff. And I said, oh my God, I don't want to go do a part 2 of this. But the money was good, and again, I got to take along Monique Gabrielle, and we went down to Argentina to make the movie. And immediately upon arrival, the lead guy, John Terleski, who I'd met shooting Chopping Mall, and I decided to rewrite the script entirely. And so we threw out the script that I'd been given by Neil Ruttenberg, who's a good writer, but, I didn't, particularly like doing another Conan ripoff. So John and I remade It's a Wonderful Life. We remade a Frank Capra movie called It Happened One Night, and which was an old Clark Gable Academy Award winner from the 1930s. And it's about a guy taking an heiress back home. And that was our premise for Death Stalker 2.
You have such an unusual filmography. I mean, you've done such films like The Bear Wench Project and Sharkness Women's Prison and Sextapede, but then you've done like family films like Doggone Hollywood and Doggone Christmas. How do you go from one to the other like that?
It's easy because no one wants to do a horror movie and then do another horror movie and then do another horror movie. It gets repetitive. So I've often said, let's do something unusual, something that's not the same thing all the time. And also, I've aimed my films at the market. A lot of people don't do that. They make a horror film when everybody's making a horror film and then have trouble selling it. In recent times, I've realized that horror films, for the most part, aren't doing very well. I mean, of course, there's the ones that come out from Blumhouse, etc. But, if you make a low-budget horror film, you're going to have trouble getting it out there because there's no way to promote it anymore. DVDs have, slipped out of sight, I think for good, and streaming is the only way to go. And the only thing that's selling in the DVD market is family movies because, places like Target and Walmart, etc., still play those movies and have those movies for sale in their stores. So that's why I switched to family movies in recent times.
The film Forbidden World is probably one of my longtime, childhood films that I should never have watched when I was a kid, but it's always stuck with me. I've always found that film to be incredibly fascinating. You wrote the story behind it, or you wrote the script?
Well, I was working for Corman's publicity department at the time, hoping that I would get a chance to make movies. And they had just finished a movie called Galaxy of Terror. And it had all these wonderful sets, which they stayed put after the movie was finished. And I went up to Roger Corman. I said, I wrote this script that you could shoot on those sets. And he took it into the restroom. And he came out and he said, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to make it. And I was thrilled. He hired another writer to rewrite it. He did a nice job. But, I got the story credit, which is what I wanted. And it was a lot of fun to see that film get made at the time. A guy named Alan Holzman directed it wonderfully and turned it into a very, kind of a minor cult classic. And I was thrilled to have my name on it.
When you're the writer, the producer, the director, and you star in it, how do you balance all those different hats? Because some of your films, you're doing all four of those things, not just directing and writing it.
Well, I don't think I've ever put myself in a film other than a small bit part. But, when you're writing, you're trying to write for things you can do. When you write a script, you try to figure out, where can I shoot this? Okay, where can I shoot this and make it look wonderful rather than just create something out of the blue? So a lot of my films, I've started to write knowing where I was going to shoot it. And then later on, when I was producing it, I would make sure that I got permission to shoot areas before I started the movie. Then as a director, I would just walk onto these sets and shoot them. And it would give the film a huge production value for not little money, not a lot of money.
When making these independent films, which a lot of your career is in the independent direct-to-DVD, low-budget sci-fi horror fantasy films, what's the biggest challenge you're always facing?
The toughest job is to find the money to make it. That's it. That's the toughest job. Once you find the money, making it is a breeze for me. But it's going out and finding the capital to make it. I made a lot of movies and made a lot of people some money, so I've got a pretty good, track record. And I can go back to people and say, how about doing this or how about doing that? And they'll always usually say yes. I was about to start 2 movies this summer, and now they're both on hold until this stupid virus goes away.
What was the last thing you worked on? It was Cobra Gator?
Yeah, Cobra Gator. That's a bone of contention with me because it hasn't been released. I finished it 4 years ago.
Oh my God!
And I delivered it 4 years ago, and it's still not out.
Who did you deliver it to?
Roger Corman.
Oh, it's a Roger Corman film.
Yeah, and he has not pursued it in 4 years. Again, like he's 92 years old or whatever he is, but you'd think, and he liked the film. He called me and said, "It was a wonderful picture." And we shot it in Florida with Michael Madsen, a bunch of hot chicks, and it was well done. And I cannot understand for the life of me why he's holding on to it. Come along and then it'll show up. But right now it's like a bone of contention with him and myself.
It's right up there with that Fantastic Four movie he never released.
That's true. That was something he didn't tell anybody, but he made that not to get released.
When you're working with all these films with creatures that aren't really on screen, do you push a lot more sometimes to make the special effects look a lot better? And how often do you use CGI versus any type of animatronic?
Well, I've never used animatronics at all, except for maybe Munchie. And those were just little dolls that were like robotic dolls. But CGI, it was a necessary evil once these CGI things started back in the early 90s. And yeah, I've made a slew of them. Arkansas Women's Prison Massacre. I did Gargoyles. I did a whole slew of them. Yeah, it's how they're done, how well they're done, and how well they're integrated. I made a movie called The Thing Below in Canada, and the producers, who I hate, hired these kids out of high school to do the CGI, and the CGI was less than PlayStation 1. Okay, and I said, it ruins the movie. Takes you right out of the movie once you see the bad CGI. So, but Sharkasaw, the guys outdid themselves with the sharks in the water and also the sharks in traveling on land. They did an incredible job because I was in charge of it. Once I left Canada, on The Thing Below, they stepped in and destroyed it because they didn't know what they were doing.
You had mentioned you wanted Julie Strain as Vampirella. Is that because you had worked with her in Sorceress?
Yes, I knew Julie very well, and we worked together a number of times back in the day. She's in failing health right now, but
I'd heard about that.
But I do wish her, well, under the circumstances, and it's tough. She's got Alzheimer's, but we made a lot of movies together, as I recall. small parts and sometimes in bigger parts. Sorceress was a lot of fun, and it was a lot. It was a good time.
Can you talk a little bit more about Sorceress? I know it recently just came out, or not recently, but a few years ago. What was it? Synapse Films put it out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, well,
gave it a great treatment.
Sorceress was made by a financier from Texas who came to me and said, "Let's make a movie about witches," because that happened to be his interest. So I hired a guy named Mark McGee to write a script about modern day witches, and I said, fill it with as many beautiful girls as you can come up with. And he did. We had Julie Strain, Rochelle Swanson, Tony Naples, my fine actress Melissa Purcell, a.k.a. Rocky DeMarco, was in it. It was the first time we worked together, and there was a lot of good-looking girls in it. And it was a fun movie to do.
It kind of reminded me of the what is that film series that's had like 16 entries and gone on since like 1989? Witchcraft.
Oh, Witchcraft.
Yeah. Did you ever make any of those?
No, I never did.
Was it something you always wanted to tackle? Because it'd be right up your alley in the genre.
No, something. I usually don't. I did a couple of franchise types movies like Ghoulies 4 and Deathstalker 2, Big Bad Mama 2. I did a bunch of them, but I always like doing new titles and then doing sequels to them. So, by doing sequels, I never really tried to copy the original.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like Deathstalker 2 or Ghoulies 4. I hated those little puppets. And I said, I'm making my ghoulies real people, little people. And it worked out.
One film I'm not too familiar with is The Wasp Woman. Is that the remake of the old movie from the 50s?
Yes, it is. The Wasp Woman was a remake of Roger Corman's black and white movie, The Wasp Woman, from back around 1958. He made it for a company called Film Group, which is his own company. And I think it fell out of copyright. But when Roger was doing remakes of a lot of his product, he asked me if I wanted to do Wasp Woman, and I said, of course. We did a modern day upgrade of the story, and we made a much better Wasp Woman than he had. He had a woman wearing a sock with a couple of pipe cleaners.
Oh my God!
It wasn't very high tech. We had a pretty cool Wasp Woman.
Have you ever turned anything down that went on to become something kind of big, a little big, or something that you regretted turning down that you wish you had made after seeing their final product?
I can say that the things I have turned down went nowhere. That's probably a plus. I got asked to do a number of films that I just said I can't do it. I can't do anything with this, and I just said no. And the films either never got made, or that if they got made, they got made horribly. The last one that I can recall was 3 years ago. They wanted me to do a thing called The Last Revenants, and they had all these great looking girls. I shot a promo in a day for nothing, and then the producer let me go because I said something ridiculous about the film on Facebook. And then they actually made it in Texas somewhere, and it died on the vine. And I was happy. So that was the last thing I did not do. And I'm glad I did.
Why do you need to change your name to H.R. Blueberry when you make certain type of films, like the kind of erotic horror movies? Is it like something in your contract?
At one point I was making films like 6-7 a year. and I did not want to have my name associated with all 6 movies, because the buyers would say, "Oh, you're I don't know, outdoing yourself and stretching yourself." So I would put fake names on a couple of them. And then later, when I got into doing the late night Cinemax movies, I kind of disowned them and just put my fake name, Adrian Blueberry, on those.
Do you have any great stories from working for Cinemax at any point, making these late night movies?
Not for your show, pal. Every one of those films has great stories. Great stories. I was making those films. They were paying $80,000 for those films. Okay? $80,000 on broadcast. And that's a lot of money. But it doesn't sound like a lot. But it is a lot, because I was making them for $30,000. I would make 2 erotic movies over a week's time for $30,000 each.
Wow.
And then I would sell them for $80,000.
Did Cinemax have any kind of did they give you a lot of leeway to do what you wanted, or did they have a lot of notes for you?
I could do anything I wanted, but I had to keep to their rules.
And what were Cinemax rules?
Well, you can't show a stiff, and you can't show a woman. Okay.
That's good. That's a good professional way of saying it.
And here was the big stipulation. You could do anything you want, but if they didn't like it, they wouldn't buy it. And you'd blow $30,000.
It definitely seems like the type of films that came out in the 90s for low budget horror erotica are a vastly different kind of universe compared to, the stuff that's made today. And I don't just mean by you, but by anybody.
All I know is I started doing these things in 2004. And I must have made 20 of them in a very short period. And the one that got me in trouble was The Hills Have Thighs. Okay? Because I was doing all these Witches of Breastwick, parody titles.
Right. Like the Blair Witch Project. In fact, we recently just had the Blair Witch Project video game come out last year, and I said to myself, "Hey, where's the Blair Witch Project? I would play the hell out of a game called the Blair Witch Project."
Blair Witch Project, by the way, was shot in 2 days.
The first one?
2 days. First one.
Okay.
It was going to cost me $10,000. It was the best $10,000 I ever spent.
Wow.
I put 4 girls in a motorhome, drove up to Northern California, and sent them out there without a script. I just told them, here's what this scene's about. Here's what this scene's about. And these 4 girls were so good, and if they blew the scene, I'd just take them back to square one and do it again. And we film it, and they all got all kinds of ad-libbing going on. And after 2 days, I said, "That's it. We got the whole thing." And we drove back home, put it on tape. I said, "Well, I think I blow $10,000. But let's see." And then Showtime turned around and gave me $120,000 for that movie.
Wow. That's nuts.
Because HBO had Blair Witch Project, and Showtime wanted their version of it. So they paid $120,000 for what I made for 10.
And then so okay, did the Blair Witch Project come out before the Erotic Witch Project?
Yeah, we beat them all.
We beat them all. Okay.
We beat them all.
What made it? Was it because these are being shown on like cable cable television, paid for cable television, so there's no commercials. What makes the studio want to keep making more? Because they made Blair Witch 2, 3, and 4, even though the movie stopped after Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows.
I made money on it. I think I went up to part 3, and then I did a mail order part 4, and then just because I met up with a bunch of girls I liked, I said, let's go out and do part 5. And we went out and we did it.
It is.
I made Bear Wench 5 in 2005.
I saw that, yeah.
And it just came out on DVD, I think, 2-3 years ago.
My roommate, and I'll send you this picture on Facebook, but my roommate, his library collection of films, he probably owns almost every film you've ever made. The home theater in the house I live in has thousands of movies. I'll have to send you a picture of like the collection. It's unbelievable.
I'm telling him, thank you very much for purchasing.
Yeah, he definitely buys his physical media. He loves physical media, so it's always a...
I do too. I don't want to be depending on Netflix to find a movie.
Right. No, I love the fact that like Scream Factory and Arrow and Vestron are putting out all these, cult films on Blu-ray and giving them, bonus material like again, the aforementioned Return of Swamp Thing we talked about. That was loaded with bonus material. Unbelievable amount.
Yeah, I gave them a lot. And I was the one who remastered Chopping Mall for Blu-ray.
Oh, fantastic.
And they did a great job with that one. They did a lot of extras and put it out in top form. It was like a Criterion edition.
It is funny that the Witches of Brestwick came out in 2005, and it's a parody of the Witches of Eastwick, which came out in the late 80s.
It doesn't matter. It was Witches of Eastwick is a title that's become iconic.
Right.
Okay? So if you make the Witches of Brestwick, 15 years later, people are still going to know what you're talking about. And I had a cast in that one that included, Stormy Daniels, Julie K. Smith, Gloria Ann Gilbert. It was like a who's who of softcore.
What do you have coming out that you can mention? I know you have some stuff that unfortunately got delayed because of COVID-19, but is there anything coming out that you want to plug?
Nope. Can't right now because I don't want to talk about stuff that's kind of... the one I will talk about, I'm doing a parody of 80s horror. I'm doing a thing called Cannibal Pep Squad. And I'm bringing everybody back. Bring Stevens, Michelle Bauer, Linnea Quigley, Becky LeBeau. I'm bringing them all back.
Awesome. Fantastic.
And they're all older women now, but, I'm bringing them all back. And, they're going to have small parts, but it's going to be a fun movie to make. I can't do it, though. I was planning to do it this month, but at the last minute, all this crap happened, and I couldn't do it. I felt, and now I'm stuck here. I have a nice house with a pool, and so if you got to be stuck, this is a good place to be stuck with. But I'm just bored. Anybody creative like yourself, I'm sure you're bored. Excuse me, I'm not bored.
No, it's fine. I gotta let you go anyway. Jim, it was fantastic talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me. I do hope that you stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to more amazing, interesting projects from you in the future.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'll have a prayer for everybody out there. Okay?
Yeah.